what's up, buff dudes and girls? We are here with a video about, what is this about? I put her on the spot. It's about how to build glutes and quads, right? 3 exercises, easy to perform, that we want to go over on how to strengthen your glutes and quads. I mean, it's predominantly glute and quad based, but a little bit of the hamstrings are involved too. We don't want to confuse it too much, but that's what we're going to be doing, and we picked out Michaela's 3 favorite exercises, which are going to be
lunges, kettlebell swings, and what was the other one? I actually forgot.
She forgot her favorite.
Goblet squats.
The goblet squat. She knows. She's just camera shy at this point. She's still getting used to it. So we're just going to go over those 3 easy exercises, what to keep in mind when you're performing them, and what to do and what not to do. So the first one is going to be the goblet squat, and we have it ready right here. The kettlebell is waiting there patiently to be picked up by the beautiful Michaela, and it's going to be grabbing it by the horns, because that's what you got to do with life. And you're going to be lifting it in position, which is just right at about the clavicle, right under the chin there. And proper squat positioning, as you can tell, decently wide stance here, a little bit wider than hip. Toes pointed out in a comfortable position, and keeping a pretty vertical torso in this one, especially because it's, you know, now you're counterbalancing the weight that is placed in the front position of your body rather than a rear squat. So you're just going to be basically busting these out. And squats, usually, especially with the front-loaded squat, is going to be a lot more focus on the quads, but the glutes are definitely going to be activated in something like this because it is just one of the primary movers of a movement like this, an exercise like this. So going to that kind of below hip crease, as you can tell, the hip crease is below knee, excuse me. So that way you're getting a little bit fuller range of motion. I know these are tough. I'm just gonna keep talking and having her rep out as many as possible. But yeah, so that's the exercise number 1. It's not only gonna get you a nice mobility in your squat, better positioning in your squat, getting used to that position, but it's also just working your glutes out, which is kind of like a win-win. Goblet squat, very key whenever you want to try to work your glutes, quads, and just for a better squat in general. So
tougher than they look, too.
They are definitely tougher than they look, especially when you're going pretty heavy like this. And goblet squats is a great beginner exercise whenever kind of working your way into maybe some more difficult positions, like rear-loaded squat or heavier squats. So if you're kind of iffy about squats, goblet squats, perfect exercise to introduce you into something like that. And then what not to do in an exercise like this is a few things. I'll do the what not to do since you did it. The what to do perfectly is keeping the weight too far away from you in this position, because when you get down here, it's going to want to pull you forward, and your bend starts to arch, your back starts to arch, excuse me, and your hips are a bit too high. So the first thing is you want to keep it right under your chin here. Keep your elbows tight, and when you come down to the bottom position, try to keep that nice vertical torso here. Try not to lean forward, really try to push those hips through, and as you get down to this bottom position, you can even push your knees apart quite a bit more there, even with your elbows if you want, and then when you press up to the top position, you get a nice clean movement and press. You don't want your knees coming in, you don't want your toes to kind of start leaning inwards, or your feet, you want it nice and stable on the ground. So that external rotation there, stabilize that movement, and it's pretty good to go there. Thankfully, an exercise like this, pretty straightforward, and you'll kind of know when you're doing it wrong, because it's gonna feel uncomfortable. When you do it right, it should feel very comfortable and very strong as well. So we're on to the second exercise, which is gonna be
lunges.
Lunges. Now, there's lots of variations of lunges. We're going to be doing kind of a split squat just because we don't have a lot of room to do walking lunges, but we'll be talking about walking lunges as well. But we're just going to get into the lunge position, the proper lunge position. Nice wide stance, as you can tell. Her chest and torso, chest up, torso is vertical. Knees not going over the toes. Even if it does a little bit, that's okay, as long as the heel is not picking up and you're still pushing from mid-foot there. Knee is slightly elevated above ground. Even holding this position is a workout. It's tough. But immediately in this position, your glutes can be firing up, quads can be firing up, a little bit in the hamstring because of the stretch there. And of course, you have your stability leg here for support and to stabilize you through that motion. So this is just a split squat. You can basically just go up and down, and that's going to be working perfectly for what you want it to do, your glutes and quads. But you can add a little motion in there, a walking lunge, which is going to be the forward motion here. So you're not only stepping forward and accelerating, now you have to decelerate that motion into that position. So it's a little bit more tricky because now you're adding extra motion into it, movement into it. So you have to be very conscious of what you're doing and balance too when you're getting in that position. So take your time, usually just body weight at first and make sure you're building up that strength and positioning in correct form, and then slowly work up into using weight. There's also, of course, the Bulgarian split squat, which is the elevated leg. Same kind of lunge positioning. And you just bring yourself down. It's going to create a lot more stretch in that backward placed leg in the quad. It's going to put a little bit more weight on there too, and then you can hold weights as well to make it a little bit more difficult. So a lot of different variations, but an excellent exercise to really work those glutes and quads. Where'd you go? Where'd my assistant go? She just disappeared. Oh God, there she is. You didn't know where.
I've been here the whole time.
She has. What's the next exercise?
What are they? I actually just forgot. Wait.
You're fired.
Kettlebell.
Kettlebell swings.
Kettlebell
So we got
swings.
kettlebell. These are her favorite. So we're doing kettlebell swings next. Now this is going to be working a little bit more of that posterior chain, a little bit more on the hamstrings as well as the glutes. And the positioning in this one is stepping up to the kettlebell. And as you can tell, about the same stance is the goblet squat. So if you look at their position here, it's pretty wide stance, wider than hip, feet placed down in a comfortable position. And this is the starting position, and you're going to kind of bend, flex in the hips, bring that kettlebell between your legs, slowly build up a little momentum here. Now the arms aren't doing any of the work. The arms are basically just holding that weight. There'll be a little bit of work in there just to stabilize the motion, but as you can tell, bringing it back, she's decelerating the weight by flexing in the hips, getting a nice stretch in the hamstrings, almost the same positioning as like a RDL, where you kind of feel that nice stretch in the hamstrings, and she's using that hip thrust to push that weight, bring that momentum, and create that momentum, I should say, with the muscles there contracting to bring that weight up. A lot of flex and a lot of contraction in the glutes, as you can tell. So it's almost like you see where a lot of people will do those kind of the hip thrusts or the glute bridges, where they're working in that hip extension in there and getting that nice glute squeeze. But this one's a little bit more dynamic, it's a little bit more ballistic, because you're having to really kind of create that momentum and that power and that force through the hip section there. So it can not only make your glutes look really good and your hamstrings, but it can kind of carry over into other exercises too, because you're building that power and strength. And the power, of course, is kind of being able to move weight with speed. So it's a little bit more dynamic in that way, and that's why we love these kettlebell swings. But it also just makes your glutes look good. That's what we're all about. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. So there you go. Hopefully that helped. And I want to say thank you to Buff Girl Michaela for helping us out. And hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions in future videos, please let us know in the comments below. We always appreciate that. And as always, stay buff. We'll get a booty flex though with this one. Ready? And as always, stay buff. No one's gonna be